record-breaking steam engine restored to its former glory? Can an expert team haul this precious engine across the country, ready for a giant steam gala, without scratching its pristine paintwork?
That's going to be tight.
The team must battle treacherous traffic.
The lights have gone red.
Narrow country lanes.
Got traffic going past you now.
And the tightest of squeezes.
Keep it coming, Kev.
To deliver this historic locomotive on time.
When it goes up, just watch the brake locks on the 3 axles.
It's a titanic task, even for the world's toughest train truckers. The Crewe Diesel Depot in Cheshire is permanent home to 13 of the UK's most iconic locomotives, spanning the golden age of steam, like Blue Peter, Sherwood Forester, and Bittern. For the last 6 years, teams of dedicated engineers and volunteers have been rebuilding one of the most elegant locomotives to ever grace our railways, the record-breaking Sir Nigel Gresley.
Sir Nigel Gresley is an A4 LNER Pacific locomotive that was designed to operate express trains from London King's Cross up to Edinburgh in the fastest possible times.
There's 35 of these built, of which 6 survive today, and they are a little bit special. I mean, they look a bit different, so superficially they're different, but perhaps no other class of steam locomotive has ever shown such a propensity for high speed. These locos, many of the locos of their class are known to have exceeded 100 miles an hour, and this was recorded after the Second World War, doing 112 miles an hour.
The real Sir Herbert Nigel Gresley was a highly talented pre-war engineer. He invented a 3-cylinder steam engine that only used 2 valves, producing more power at lower costs. Perfect for fast, non-stop train journeys. He is perhaps best remembered as the designer of Flying Scotsman, and later the unusual-looking Pacific class of locomotives. The fastest speed achieved by one of these Pacific class locomotives was 126 miles per hour. The engines were used with a tender, which carried the water and coal. The tenders had an unusual design feature, an access corridor that enabled drivers and engineers to pass from the engine cab through to the train carriages.
It used to be used on non-stop expresses between London and Edinburgh, and it takes too long and there's too much coal to shovel to get from London to Edinburgh. So what they would do about halfway, which I think was just north of York, is they would change the crew. So a new fireman and driver would come through the corridor, they'd be riding in the train, they would take over the operation of the loco. The crew that had been on since the first half would go back and enjoy the rest of the journey in one of the compartments in the train.
It's taken 6 years of painstaking work to fully restore the Pacific class locomotive Sir Nigel Gresley. More than 60,000 hours of labour by around 70 people has gone into this incredible £1 million restoration. Today, the team at Crewe must wave goodbye to this Leviathan as it heads off to start a new chapter in its illustrious career.
Today we're going to be taking Sir Nigel Gresley by road from Crewe Diesel Depot. We're expecting the heavy haulage team to arrive about 9 o'clock, and we'll shunt the locomotive across from the depot here onto the loading pad, where she'll be loaded onto 2 trailers, and then she'll be taken to Bridgnorth, and hopefully she'll get there in time today so we can get her unloaded.
Moving the engine 50 miles south to Bridgnorth in Shropshire, home of the Severn Valley Railway, will take extreme engineering and planning. "75 miles west, near Birmingham, family-run firm Allaley's
Heavy Haulage
are experts at the challenging task of moving heavyweight railway locomotives. Founded in the 1950s by Maurice Allaley, the business has grown from a small agricultural mover to become one of the trusted names in heavy haulage.
We can move anything.
Massive abnormal loads, enormous steel girders, mega yachts, and super long lengths of pipe, as well as locomotives of all shapes and sizes, are all in a day's work for this team.
Moving trains is a very specialist industry, and we're one of the few companies within the UK that can actually move these big trains and locomotives.
Nobody expects to see a loco on the back of a lorry. There's never a day when you see it where it's not impressive.
The engine and tender's destination is the 16-mile-long Severn Valley Railway. Here, the locomotive will undergo a series of critical engineering tests before it makes a star appearance at a huge steam gala.
Loco and tender, crew, then you'd like to take that to Severn Valley Railway Bridge North. Not a problem.
We've got a good relationship with the team at Crewe. They have brought a number of their locomotives to the Severn Valley Railway for testing, running in. They will want to clock up at least 500 miles before it starts to venture out on the main line, just to make sure any niggles with it, any problems have been overcome before it goes out and starts running at faster speeds and hauling bigger trains.
The team must shift this lovingly restored and valuable iron workhorse to its destination without a scratch on it. The fastest route from Crewe to Bridgnorth is just 46 miles. But the combined weight of the truck and engine, 126 tons, means that they can't travel faster than 30 miles an hour. And they must take diversions to avoid bridges that have weight restrictions. So the journey from the depot to the railway will take around half a day.
It's going to be a struggle to get the loco loaded and unloaded in a day. The guys are going to have to work hard at setting the ramp up and taking it down fairly quick to get it loaded and away. And the same at Bridgnorth. Hopefully we'll get it unloaded before the light goes.
It's the day of the big move. But there's an early hiccup. The trucking team is stuck in traffic and have yet to get to the depot.
The time now is 20 past 9. We're waiting for those guys to turn up, which hopefully isn't going to be too much longer.
The 5-vehicle crew of Kevin, Lucas, Jamie, Harry and Seb finally arrive.
Keep it coming.
They must get straight to work.
Keep it coming. Slow it down.
Lining up the trailer in exactly the right position, ready for loading.
Keep going. 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 And stop. Okay, mate, we'll go forward and set her up straight. I'm on line at the back. I'm just waiting for Red.
Their first challenge, a maths and physics lesson. Sir Nigel Gresley is over 21 metres in length, much longer than other steam engines from the same period, so the team must be extremely careful loading it onto the trailer. If they position it too far towards the front or rear, it could cause the trailer to tip.
Most steam trains are quite sort of long, 50 foot, 58 foot, various wheelbases, but with a long steamer, you want to spread it over the trailer so it's not sat right at the front as you put too much weight on the tractor unit, or too far back you haven't got enough weight on the tractor unit.
Knowing where the engine needs to sit on the trailer is one thing. Getting it up there is another. The team use ramps of around 18 metres long, pitched at an angle of less than 2 degrees to load locomotives. But this engine is so long that its front wheels could lift off the rails at the top of the ramp, which may damage the suspension. Kevin's trigonometry had better be up to snuff.
For steam trains, the pony axles on the front, they have a limited amount of travel. So if you go too steep a ramp, it imposes too much weight on the pony and they'll either touch on the body or it'll break the springs, so you have to compromise so it gets equal weight all the way on. If you get it too steep, the front wheel will lift. So you don't want to do any damage to loco. This is somebody's pride and joy, so whatever the customer wants, we try and accommodate. The better we can get the longer ramp, the better it makes their life easier. The loco goes up better, it's smoother and safer.
The team build a test version of the ramp to check their angles.
That should give us less than 2 degrees on that beam. By that point there, we're going to have where the pony is there, but if we're looking at 12 metres, when we're coming up on the point there, the other end of the loco is going to be on here. I see that we get the same height, else we get a deflection in the line.
Ramp building takes a further half an hour. But finally, Kevin's happy.
It's looking good. I'm quite happy so far. We'll get it packed up and we'll just have to watch what the loco does as it comes on. If we have any problems, we'll stop and we'll come back off, but they seem happy at that angle. It's less than 2 degrees, so should be good.
After giving 6 years of loving care, for some of the team at Crewe, like Darren Crone, seeing Sir Nigel being winched up onto a trailer stirs mixed feelings.
You don't have time to go next to the loco, sit down with a cup of tea, look at it and go, wow, look what we've done. It's all just part of a process. So maybe one day in the future, when it's running, I'll sit down and go, wow, what a job. But at the moment, it's just get the loco on the truck, let's not get it damaged, let's get it on the Severn Valley Railway, let's get it ran in, let's hope we don't have too many teething troubles, let's get it on the main line, let's get the job signed off.
The engine slowly moves up the ramp onto the trailer. The team used chains to lock it in place. Finally, Kevin and the team dismantle the ramp and get ready for the next challenge, loading the giant tender. But with a late start, they've got their work cut out. After a restoration costing over £1 million, Kevin and the team have painstakingly loaded the 93-ton Pacific A4 class locomotive called Sir Nigel Gresley onto a giant truck ready to transport it to the Severn Valley Railway in Bridgnorth, Shropshire.
It's gone on quite nice, to be fair. Yeah, it went on nice. They were concerned about the axle there, but they were happy about it with the ramp angle. It's gone on all right.
With the engine now safely loaded, they can move it out of the way.
Put them chains on and do the height here, then we'll go up there. We're out the way then.
The team's trailer is fitted with 48 special wheels across 6 axles. They can be turned independently from the wheels on the truck and are operated by a remote control. This makes it easier to guide the load through tricky spaces and saves time.
Oh, OK, mate. Leave the lead on the back for a bit, mate, and we'll look them.
But before the team can hit the road for their 70-mile journey south, they still have to load the tender. The tender weighs 33 tons. It's lighter than the engine, but still needs a powerful locomotive to shunt it to the loading spot. The team carefully line up their trailer with the tender to make sure loading goes without a hitch. Like the engine, the tender has been emptied of all fuel and water. Unlike the engine, it can cope with a steeper incline, which means the ramp can be shorter and, in theory, faster to build. But Kevin must still keep a close eye on its construction.
Wants more of a packing under there. If you stand back here, you want to go up another inch or so on that, then I'll kick that down, you'll get level. It's going for the follow the contour of the trailer then. Yeah. And you'll put pressure on them, so if you put pressure on them, it won't ever kick off because you've always got weight on them. Yeah. You'll find now when that tips on that, it'll want to lift the ramp and then kick it.
With Kevin satisfied that the ramp is ready, loading can begin. First, they attach the winch to the front of the tender. Then it's a case of inch by inch on the winch, while Kevin watches to make sure that the wheels don't slip off the ramp.
Have you got any rubber?
It takes the team over 4 hours to load 93 tons of steam locomotive and its 33-ton tender. Now, they must gear up for the road trip.
It's roughly about 65 to 70 mile, but we've got a few diversions we can't go and a little bit of route where we have to get off and get back on again and a few bridges we have to slow down for. Hopefully it'll take us 3.5 to 4 hours roughly to get in there. I know it's not a lot of miles, but we're only travelling at 30 mile an hour down the motorway. Our average speed will probably be about 22 mile an hour over the whole journey.
The team has a long 70-mile journey ahead of them, owing to weight restrictions on the more direct route between Crewe and Bridgnorth. Traffic restrictions mean they can't travel into Bridgnorth during rush hour. So they must plan their journey to arrive after the rush hour is over.
We've got restrictions on what time we can move, so we'll be going in tonight as it's a little bit quieter. Although it's in the dark, makes it a little bit more awkward, but we'll be going in so we don't avoid a lot of traffic, rush hour, and most people are out of the way then, so we can get in without causing any disruption, as it's a little bit awkward when we get into Bridgnorth and we hold a few people up. Are we all ready?
Oh yeah. Right then, traffic's all stopped, I'm coming now.
And they're off. This convoy is vast. 3 escort vehicles act as eyes and ears for the massive engine and tender as they move through town. The 5-vehicle procession turns heads wherever it goes.
See people's faces when they see you drive past with that on the back.
It takes over an hour to move clear of the town. Now the drivers can put the pedal to the metal and get moving.
Which way are we routed? Which way are we going?
Just keep following us if you can. Couldn't think of a more favourite time to go down the M6 rush hour. What a good time that is.
It takes 3.5 hours of careful navigation over hills and through narrow roads to close in on the railway. It's now 9 p.m. The lack of light will make their next obstacle a real challenge: getting into the railway yard, which has a notoriously tricky entrance to negotiate. To navigate into the railway yard, Kevin must reverse sharply into the narrow entrance. If he hits the raised curb on the corner, it could tip the load over. While Kevin reverses the truck, Harry steers the trailer wheels around the curb from behind. Fast-moving road traffic makes navigating this tight turn even more difficult. And someone has just made the whole operation 5 times harder.
Keep it coming.
A driver has parked a van right in their way. Steering around it will be a real test.
Keep it coming, Kev.
Other parked cars make the task even tougher. They need to stop to check if they can get through at all.
That's going to be tight. So I'll get a tape measurement on exactly know how many inches we've got. We need 10 foot and a little bit. We've got 10 foot.
Have we got a little bit?
Kevin calculates they should have between 2 and 3 inches to spare. If his maths is wrong, then they will become wedged in the tightest of gaps.
Keep it coming.
It's an extremely tight squeeze, but they've just managed to get through this night terror. With the steam locomotive and tender successfully delivered to the railway yard, Kevin can finally breathe a sigh of relief.
We're here now. It's 10 past, 9:15-ish. It's in. A little bit awkward with a car and a curb, but it's in, it's safe. Time for something to eat, I think. That'll do me for a day.
Kevin and his crew must get a few hours rest before the hard work begins again in the morning. The mighty 93-ton steam engine Sir Nigel Gresley and its tender have safely arrived at the Severn Valley Railway's yard in Bridgnorth, Shropshire. Now the trucking team face the challenge of unloading these giants and getting them running back on the rails.
Keep it going.
The railway at Bridgnorth is one of Britain's longest heritage lines, weaving its way through 16 miles of glorious countryside.
We have 5 viaducts, a bridge over the River Severn, a couple of railway tunnels. It's got everything that a railway is expected to have.
This single-track line with 8 stations has been a heritage railway since 1970 and attracts many tourists.
In a normal year, Severn Valley Railway carries something in the region of 200,000 passengers on our trains, so that's a lot of visitors in the year enjoying the whole heritage experience that we offer.
The original line was part of the Great Western Railway network.
The Great Western Railway was one of the big 4 private railway companies in the 1920s. GWR was known as God's Wonderful Railway. It was a good innovator. It invested in its locomotives and its staff and its trains and was widely regarded as a good railway company.
Over the next 2 weeks, Sir Nigel Gresley will undergo a series of engineering tests to certify that it is safe to run on the National Railway network. But before that process can start, the locomotive actually has to be on a track. It rests on the shoulders of lead driver Kevin to navigate the engine and tender, off the truck and back onto the rails.
We want to be as far back as we can because I don't want that loco going around that corner when that pony is still on the ramp.
The wheels on the engine can't swivel left or right. So it's crucial that the trailer lines up perfectly with the rails for the offloading to roll smoothly.
I'm just going to come check your front. I'm on the line, roughly on the back now, mate.
Harry, just keep your back end in the right place, mate. We're just going to go back a bit and just get the front end over only an inch or so.
With the trailer lined up with the rails, they can unhook the cab and move it out of the way to make space. Next task, build a ramp for the engine to roll down. It must be long and shallow, angled at no more than a 2-degree incline.
We'll pack under there and then see what the angle sits like on there like we did yesterday, see if it dops.
If they get the angle wrong, the engine could become stuck or tip as it rolls down the ramp.
Okay, I'll lift this one on, see how this one sits. How thick a packer do we want under there, please, mate? What's that gap between those 2 rails there?
The crew carry with them blocks of wood of every conceivable shape and size wherever they go. They use them to pack tight every gap under their ramps, so the steelwork stands strong and doesn't buckle under the weight of the engine.
The plan is now we've lined up. It's a little bit awkward here in Bridgnorth because it's on a bend. So we've offset the trailer on the bend. Just build the ramp up here now. They've got the shunter ready. Another 20 minutes, we should have the winch on. We start to winch it off. Once this one's off, we'll change them over, put the tender on the line and unload it. Hopefully by lunchtime we'll be all done. We'll have Seb on the winch.
Seb's job on the winch is to make sure that once the engine begins to move, it doesn't run away.
Just keep a little bit of slack in it, please, mate.
The trailer is at a slight angle. As they remove the wheel chains, the engine should begin to move. But Sir Nigel Gresley seems mighty reluctant.
Because it's just been rebuilt, a lot of the brakes are all new, it's all quite tight, so it doesn't want to roll. Once it starts to move, it'll be all right. We'll just have to chain it a little bit to get a bit more of a downhill, and then we'll go.
Time for some good old-fashioned elbow grease. The team ratchet the chains and lever the wheels to get it moving.
Keep it going.
Eventually, Sir Nigel decides to play along. After 6 years of painstaking restoration work, this is the critical moment. If any of the wheels slip off the track now, they could become damaged and wreck this engine's chances of running on the railway anytime soon.
Keep it going, Seb. Cancel your gym membership this morning.
A gym membership. Don't get a body like this from going to the gym.
Just going now, innit, mate? You'll keep her all right that side, Joey?
Kevin stands by with chocks to block the wheels if they start to roll off course.
It doesn't roll very quick anyway, and you can hear it's tight in the cylinder. Go on.
If the two ramp rails move apart by just the smallest amount, it could spell disaster.
Hold it there, Joe. Big loose it off. Hold it there, mate.
The engine approaches the bottom of the ramp, where it must transition smoothly onto the rails.
Yeah, we've got about 2 foot, mate.
They move a shunting locomotive up against the nose of the engine. This will act as a brake in case the heavy engine starts to run out of control.
Come on, 6 inches.
Finally, the last wheel transitions off the ramp onto the rails.
Winch is tight, mate.
Hold it there, mate. We'll drop the winch off. Time to stop.
With the engine safely down, they can now maneuver the truck carrying the tender into position.
Take a little bit of lock off, mate. You're just going to go, just going to miss, just miss beautiful.
They assemble a shorter ramp for the tender. Unloading the tender should be a faster job, but no less precise. The tender makes it back onto the track.
Chuck it going forward then, please, mate.
A shunting engine pushes the locomotive and tender together so the team can reattach them. With a link pin bashed into place, Sir Nigel Gresley is back in one piece. Sir Nigel has his schedule penciled in for the next 10 years, hauling tourists around the country's most popular heritage railway routes. That's as long as the engine passes its crucial tests.
We're going to start tomorrow by testing the locomotive. We'll start with light engine testing, so just the engine on its own, just to settle the bearings in. And then we'll have a period of a week where we've got time to do any repairs required, and then we'll complete the testing after that. So it's about a 3-week process altogether.
The restoration team has done an extraordinary job, but a smooth run for Ian isn't guaranteed.
Home run, but this is the critical stage. If stuff starts going wrong here, it's a big problem to sort, so we're hoping that everything's going to be fine. We've got faith in the guys who've done the work, so it shouldn't be a problem, touch wood.
This historic engine is scheduled to appear at a huge steam gala in 3 weeks' time. Ian and his team face a race against the clock not to disappoint the crowds, excited to see this magnificent locomotive in all its glory. After 6 years more or less in pieces, the Pacific A4 class locomotive, Sir Nigel Gresley, is once again ready to take to the rails. The engine's return to the tracks is nothing short of an engineering miracle, backed up by a lot of hard work by volunteers.
The current overhauls cost us just over £1 million, but if you took the volunteer labour away, you can double that or maybe even triple it. So it's a big input from the volunteers, and it's what keeps the thing going.
It took around 70 volunteers, 60,000 hours of work to rebuild and restore the engine and tender. For the past 2 weeks, the locomotive has been put through a series of tests and has been given the green light to return to the tracks to pull passengers. The engine is now being prepared to take part in this year's Severn Valley Railway Steam Gala.
We're in the Loco Yard at Bridgnorth. It's an absolute hive of activity. It's sort of early in the morning. We're preparing for our Spring Steam Gala. There's all sorts of things going on here. We've just had a delivery of coal in the yard. That's causing a few little logistical problems, but nothing the guys aren't used to handling. Basically, they're getting the locomotives ready to haul the services today, and quite soon we'll be seeing them going off shed.
Locomotives like this are a bubbling mass of steam, water, oil and coal, and need constant supervision. Richard Swales is Chief Mechanical Engineer at the railway.
The most important thing is the lubrication, so you've got to make sure all the oil pots are filled.
It takes plenty of oil.
Fire-wise, you've got to prepare your fire, make sure you've got obviously sufficient steam. That takes quite a few hours, even when it's warm. Then after that, really, you're starting to look at the cosmetics. So you've got your cleaners to make sure the brakework's looking nice and shiny. You've got people to wipe down the boiler and the tender so they look reasonable.
The engine and tender are now fully loaded with water and coal. They weigh in at 102 and 93 tonnes, ready for a hard day's work.
Sir Nigel Gresley is just about due to leave the Loco Yard now to begin a busy day of hauling services Starting from here, Bridge North, we're going all the way down our 16-mile line to Kidderminster and back, and it's going to make a couple of round trips during the day, carrying hundreds and hundreds of people and being seen by hundreds and hundreds of very excited people.
The three-day gala is attracting thousands of visitors eager to explore and ride the heritage trains on display. Like 41306, this is the only survivor of its class, affectionately known as Flying Pig because of its unusually stocky appearance, caused by its particularly high running plate. Built in 1951 for freight work, this versatile engine also worked throughout its life as a passenger train. Lady of Legend steam locomotive is a youngster. It was built from the frames and boiler of another engine, Maindy Hall. And the restoration project was only completed in 2019. This weekend also marks the formal debut of Welsh Guardsman. It's one of the only survivors of 377 locomotives, built in the 1940s to help with Britain's effort during the Second World War.
It's happened a chance to have a ride behind different locomotives, different rolling stock. You've met some very nice people.
Every engine has a unique story to share, and thanks to the legions of engineers and restorers, it's a history that will never be forgotten.
It's a good outing to the Severn Valley.
It's part of our history. If you don't remember where you've been, you know, you don't know where you're going. And that applies to any sort of historical artifacts. I think it's just fortunate that there have been a lot of people who have wanted to spend time and money to keep things like this on the go. But really, I mean, you've seen today, if you just stop this and put it in a museum, it's a completely different, it's just a cold lump of metal then. But once you put a fire in it and you've got steam up, it comes alive.
The locomotive Sir Nigel Gresley is fueled with all the coal and water it needs for the long day ahead. That's 2 tons of coal and 20,000 litres of water, to be precise. More than enough to give the gala's crowds a truly spectacular show. A fitting tribute to the thousands of hours that has gone into restoring Sir Nigel Gresley to its former glory.
A steam gala like this is really about the excitement of an intensive timetable. It's about the smells, it's about the sounds, it's about the steam coming off the locomotive. It really is a very exciting place to be, as is borne out by the numbers of people that we've got here, and clearly there's a really big appetite for it.
Steam galas are fantastic. Not only are they a wonderful way of recapturing memories for older people, but certainly for me, I was born in 2000, so the age of steam had long since died. So it's a wonderful way for new generations to experience these fabulous engines and really get to experience a real working railway would be like, with goods trains, stopping trains, express trains, left, right and centre. So it's fantastic that we can still hold these events.
There are 16 miles of maintained track and stations here, providing a scenic setting for the engine to steam through.
Sir Nigel Gresley is preparing to leave Kidderminster now. It's going to run up the line. It'll be going through all our beautiful country stations and picking up passengers, dropping them off, and eventually it's going to end up in Bridgnorth, where it started this morning. Then it'll be doing it all over again this afternoon.
The locomotive Sir Nigel Gresley was built in 1937 and holds the British post-war speed record of 112 miles per hour. Today, though, it's travelling a stately maximum speed of 25 miles per hour. Experiencing the engine thunder down the track as a bystander or even a passenger is one thing, but being a driver is even better.
Well, just come off the A4, wonderful engine and no trouble at all. We had a few teething problems with it earlier in the month, but it's running like a dream now. Very economical, very easy engine to work on as well.
Everyone knows what these are. Everyone wants to see one of these going on. So to have that here, the first time in 7 years, this engine is run, it's going to bring people out. It's going to bring all sorts of people out, maybe not necessarily railway enthusiasts. So to get people here and enjoying and indulging in our hobby is brilliant.
I think it was fabulous. I really like it in the black.
Yeah. Specific type of train is the most beautiful steam train that's ever made, I would say.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to put into words what's so special about steam locomotives, but you can't deny it, can you? I mean, they really are something that just grabs hold of you. You can smell them, you can hear them, you can feel them. They are monsters of amazing engineering, and I think this is what people find so attractive and exciting about them. Really, it's witnessing engineering in its most rawest and exciting form.
A statue of the real Sir Nigel Gresley was unveiled in London's King's Cross Station on April the 5th, 2016, the 75th anniversary of his death. His brilliance ushered in a new age of travel and helped bring people together faster and safer than ever before.